Assalamualaikum all. Welcome back to episode 6 of Arabella's LCI. I hope you're enjoying our videos and learning also. In our previous episodes, we have talked about LCI processes, we have learned about first component of the lean canvas for invention, but we have so far reached only to template number 1 and template number 2 of first component of the LCI. Today's our focus would be to learn about the third template of the LCI, which is termed as Problem Investigation Script. In our previous episode, we have talked about that how an academic inventor or an entrepreneur can start looking for the relevant stakeholders with which they can interact and try to explore problem in more depth. In previous episode, we have talked about stakeholder mapping, where we have seen that 4 quadrants showing different interest and different influence of various stakeholders were highlighted. We have learned that the top right box of the stakeholder mapping is most important when an academic inventor or an entrepreneur would like to know that who are the most relevant stakeholders, particularly for problem identification. They are those people who have much more interest and at the same time much more influence on the upcoming invention by the academic inventors or the entrepreneurs. Well, once we have identified that who can be the most important people related with the research the academic inventors would like to pursue, now the task is to start interacting with them. Well, we know that most of the stakeholders with whom we want to go and conduct an interview would be very busy people. But they don't have much time. And if they do not have much time, it's our responsibility as an academic inventor or an entrepreneur to take their precise time and make it sure that we have complete script ready in our hand before we interact with them. So in order to facilitate this process, the LCI proposes template number 3, the Problem Investigation Script. The Problem Investigation Script is designed in such a way that it has multiple sections. So let us learn these multiple sections one by one. Let's look to its first section. The first section of the Problem Investigation Script is template 3 of the LCI. In fact, gives us an introduction about the academic inventor or an entrepreneur. So in this first script, the academic inventor or an entrepreneur is advised to introduce him or herself to the stakeholder with whom interview is being conducted. Well, academic inventors or an entrepreneur, they are advised to introduce themselves in just 1 minute by first mentioning about the name of a researcher, then its academic association or a company association, then giving a reason for why that interview session is going to be conducted, and then also giving a very small 2-minute story in which the academic inventor or an entrepreneur introduces the problem on which the research is required to be carried on. But you need to make it sure that this information that you are communicating to the stakeholder should not exceed more than 2 minutes. It is advised to write down this 2-minute story on a piece of paper in the first section of the Problem Investigation Script. Well, that's not enough, but you also have to inform your interviewee that what is really expected out from this interview session and what at the end of this interview would be helpful for you as an academic inventor as well as for the stakeholder. So it should be a win-win situation for both of them. For this 2-minute story, the introductory phase of an academic inventor or an entrepreneur is over. Let's look to section number 2 of the Problem Investigation Script. Here it is. Well, now here you can see in this section, first this script is asking you to write down all the 5 problems that you have already explored through the LCI template number 1. In template number 1, which was 5 whys, you in fact came up with 5 different problems which are so much connected with each other. It is advised now to write down all those 5 problems on a piece of paper before you are interacting with any stakeholder for interview session. Now, once those 5 problems are readily available in front of you, then you start interacting with your stakeholder by asking them a couple of questions. For example, the very first question that you are asking him, what are the 3 main problems your stakeholder is facing? Well, though you have a list of 5 problems, but that is based on some literature search that you have carried out from your side. Let us now learn from your stakeholders what are their problems, but they will not vary from the field of study that you are investigating upon. It will be very much relevant to the same problem that you were exploring at the time of 5 whys technique. So let's ask your stakeholder, what are the 3 main problems that you are facing? What really make your task on daily basis difficult? And where he or she is looking to the possibilities of change and improvement. If you remember the problems we have explored as an example, in our previous episode, we were talking about some knowledge relevant issues in construction industry, where we have explored that there is no knowledge management system exists, and you may be able to get the same problem identified from your stakeholder. He or she may be giving you a problem by saying that it's very difficult to bring all the stakeholders, including clients, consultant, on the same page because of lack of some knowledge management techniques. So that somehow connect your problem with the problem that your stakeholder is facing. And exactly this is what we are looking forward for. Because we want that the problems that we have explored will get a validation from the interview session by making it sure that yes, you are really looking for a problem of a real world that your research or your invention, your future invention can solve. So this is how you can complete section number 2 of problem investigation script. Now let's have a closer look to section number 3. Here it is. Now section number 3 in fact allows an academic inventor to continue with the interview session by giving or sharing your identified 5 problems with a stakeholder. Just see what we have done so far. We have introduced ourselves to the stakeholder. We then gave a 2-minute story. Then we listed down our 5 problems with us. Then we asked them for 3 different problems that he or she was handling. And now I think that is a time that an academic inventor must share the identified 5 problems with a stakeholder. You as an academic inventor or an entrepreneur can start sharing your 5 identified problems and asking your interviewee whether they really see it as a problem or not. So discuss your 5 problems one by one with them and let's have their view on it. Now once all the problems are discussed with the stakeholders, luckily you have a list of 8 problems available. This has been depicted in section number 4 of the problem investigation script. Well, that's the 4th section of problem investigation script. Now see, it has a table format. And in this table format, you can clearly see that there are 2 codes used. The first code is problem identified by an academic inventor. We can see it as PAC. The second code can be seen as the problem identified by stakeholder. So it can be codified as PSKH. So in this table, in fact what do we have? We have 3 problems that were identified by the stakeholder and 5 problems which were identified by you as an academic inventor. List down all these 8 problems and then ask your interviewee to mark the intensity of these problems on a scale of high, moderate and low. Well, he or she can tell you which of the problem is of high intensity, which of them can be considered as a moderate and which of them can be considered as a low. In section number 5 of this script, now you can see that we again have all those 8 problems listed down, and in this list, now we are asking them for the emergency level of solving these problems. Well, each and every problem does not really need to conduct research upon. Some problems can be solved on its way. But again, there are few problems which definitely need a research and some future inventions to solve it. So here we can ask from those stakeholders that on the scale from 1 to 10, where 1 may be considered as a scale which is not very crucial to solve at the moment, and 10 could be considered as a scale where emergency solution is required for this real world practical problem. Interact with them and ask them that what is the level of emergency in solving the all 8 problems. Maybe few of them will be counted as 1, few of them may be counted as at level of 2, few of them may be counted at level of 7 or 8 or 10. This completes section number 5 of the problem investigation script. Finally, in section number 6 of problem investigation script, let us ask your stakeholders, what are the rules and regulations? What are the standards which may affect the future invention you are intending to come up with? So once you have information of all of these issues readily available in your hands, it's easier to move on further in the phase of problem identification. When it's observed that establishing a contact with stakeholder is most difficult part before going for the interview session. We have seen the stakeholder mapping is helping us to identify those stakeholders. But it is also important to seek some assistance from all the stakeholders one by one for establishing your second contact with another interview. Here we can use a technique of snowball sampling that was introduced by Coleman and Goodman. In this technique, they were asking us to ask for reference. Reference means that once you have established a contact with any stakeholder and once you have finished your first interview session, at the end you may request them to please connect you with some other stakeholder who they feel maybe are of an importance for your invention. Well, if you have the reference, there's a more chance that new people will interact with you more friendly and there's a chance that you'll get feedback from them. Well, this ends the LCI template number 3 for problem investigation script. Well, but at the same time, I share that even we have concluded today the first component of the LCI, which is problem identification. Let's quickly have a look what we have done and see how we are going to summarize this first component of the problem identification of the LCI. Quick review, we have learned 3 questions in problem identification box. We have used the first template of the LCI, that is 5 why techniques. Then we have worked on second technique or second template of the LCI for stakeholder mapping. And today we have concluded this first component of the LCI after learning the problem investigation script. So let me conclude this first component of problem identification of the LCI today on the note that I am expecting that after adopting these 3 questions, checklist 1, template 1, template 2 and template 3 of the first component of the LCI, so far so good, you have already identified your real world practical problem. In our next episode, we will start with second component of the LCI. By the time, I wish you all the good luck and thank you very much.